Thanks to Buddhist Jain Fellowship for inviting me to talk on the series of e-learning, ropes and bowl, the Sangha. And this is the last lesson of this ropes and bowl series. And the title is Sustaining the Sasana. So here, the word Sasana means the teaching of the Buddhas, or can refer to the Buddha's order. So I will highlight these 5 subheadings and separately discuss and share my view on this subheading. I don't mean this talk as ultimate, but we can reflect on several passages from the suttas in Vinaya to invest, and also, of course, to investigate the long history of Buddhist development, why Buddhism declined and disappeared from the soil of India, and why Buddhism is also disappeared from Java, including Malaysia, and how should we sustain the Sasana by contemplating the Buddha's last advice to us on how to sustain the Sasana from its decline, but to its growth and prosperity. And of course, we also, investigate our individual roles as Sangha and the laity in the Buddhist community. Of course, we can, at the end of this series, we probably can give a lot of suggestion in how to sustain the Sasana. But I think living in the modern society like in Malaysia, particularly in Malaysia with different Buddhist tradition, those from Thailand, Sri Lanka, Myanmar, Chinese, or Siamese, each having a unique Buddhist culture. And how should we coexist together and appreciate each other's? We face many challenges. And of course, you can share your views and thoughts at the Q&A session. I think there is no answer to this, but I think we can share our views, our suggestions. And these are several topics for our tonight discussion. So I will highlight them into these 5 small subheadings. Malaysian Buddhism faces several challenges due to rapid growth of Buddhist globalization. And the second one is a close relationship between monks and lay person and equal status. And another one is alienation from monks and lay people, the rise of laymen and the revival of Sangha. And the last one is the future developments of Buddhism. How should we both monastic and laity sustain the Sasana by making good use of our specialty and latents, to connect with modern society and to make Buddhism a vibrant religion. Okay, so this is our area we discussed. So in the past several decades of economic globalization, Malaysian Buddhism has undergone its diversified development. So it was in the last century, it started from the 80s onward, there were many established foreign-based Buddhist organizations established in Malaysia. Right, to name a few, like Fo Guangsan, the Chiji Buddhist Merit Society, or Dhamma Drum, Amitabha Group, right, led by Venerable Ching Kong. The reason for its rapid development is, one of the reasons is due to the advantage of using Chinese language to spread religion. And another one, of course, is a strong financial support and very structural organization. So other than this Mahayana organization, there were many Vajrayana groups quite well established, and they are mostly headquartered in India. They also exercise a great influence over the Malaysian Buddhists, and they have successfully, setting up a number of centers and monasteries in Malaysia, and they use English. As compared to the Mahayana and Vajrayana, right, Theravada groups, impact are relatively small, of course, scattered here and there, and confined only to English-speaking groups. And they are coming from Sri Lanka, Myanmar, and Thailand. Then we find also another local Theravada group that is less known. They are from the local Siamese community, and they confined to Northern Buddhism, and they use Siamese language and Malay language. Yeah. So if we look at all this development, we can see of all Buddhist development, right, particularly from Taiwan Buddhist organization, their development is very rapid, right? And due to the greater resources they have, they have better experience, and of course, globally connected organization support, and they were able to attract more followers than the local Buddhist organization. And there are positive and negative impacts, of course. And we look at the positive impact, right? And the positive impact is that they are coming to Malaysia, create competition. And competition, in a good sense, a motivating force for continuous improvement. And they are coming to provide a platform of learning. And that is to say, the local Buddhist centers and temples and monasteries are able to learn from them. And this eventually provides a very important ingredients, for the developments and growth of Buddhism in Malaysia. And the immediate positive impact is the awakening of Buddhism, with more people attracted to Buddhism. There are also negative impact. One of the negative impact is the exclusive allegiance of followers to their own groups. That is to say, they dissociate themselves from other Buddhist group, or worse still, they're disparaging others Buddhist group. So such allegiance is a characteristic of many global organizations, and which are founded perhaps on idealization of their respective supreme leaders and teachers. And besides, this so-called, because this what they call the genuine global Buddhist organization, we do find, some other globally based, we call it the pseudo Buddhist groups. They are also tapping the Malaysian Buddhist resources or market. And, so these pseudo Buddhist groups, they're based in Taiwan and Canada, right? India, what else? USA, Australia, Japan, and they were able to divert a significant number of Buddhists, to the organization, and they have the same strength, of course, as the genuine global Buddhist organization. For example, they are quite well endowed with resources, and they are very, they have a good experience, and quite globally connected. So they establish a good connection with some, of course, with some local leaders of local ruling political parties. Perhaps, this is a way of securing recognition as a genuine Buddhist organization. And their presence has posed a great challenge to the developments of Buddhism, as they adulterated orthodox teachings of the Buddhists. So how Malaysia contribution to global Buddhism? Yeah, to say Malaysia contribution to global Buddhism, one is the Malaysian Buddhism has the advantage of using multi-languages, like Chinese, English, particularly, and they are quite proficiency, right, to bring Buddhism to the world. However, Malaysian Buddhism is relatively less resourceful when compared to Taiwan counterpart, for example. I think one of the main reasons is that, due to the absence of Buddhist education in school, right? We all know Malaysia is a Muslim country, right? So we have no access to Buddhist education in school. So our children has no knowledge or have very little knowledge about Buddhism. Of course, they are Buddhists, just mostly by the namesake. Of course, you may ask, we have a lot of Sunday school, right? Providing, Buddhist education in the temple, in the society. Of course, that is far not enough, right? And many teachers, of course, if we look at them, they are not well trained, or some even without any Buddhist knowledge, right? They just read books, and then this is how they impart the Buddhist knowledge. And we find that the students, our young kid now lost their interest to come to the Buddhist temple to learn the Dhamma. So the absence of formal Buddhist education in school means that it is very hard for Malaysia to produce Buddhist leaders or academicians, right, who can eventually venture to the outside world. Under such, in this situation, we can say the Malaysian contribution, to global Buddhism is quite limited. And to my knowledge, right, there has been no Malaysian-based Buddhist organization that has established any significance, influenced overseas. Of course, you may say, how about Venerable K.Sri Dhammananda? I think most of you know him, right? He was Sri Lankan, and he has contributed, to the spread of Buddhism to many parts of the world. And we know many of his books have been translated, and some books even translated into 16 languages and distributed worldwide. Right? And many Theravada benefited from his book. But of course, if you look at K.Sri Dhammananda, right? He did not attempt to build what we call the Buddhist empire, like what many other great masters have done. Okay, so if you want to talk about how about Malaysian Buddhist contribution to the global Buddhist development, probably this one is related. That is to say, Malaysian Buddhists are quite well known for their generosity, especially building temple, right, in foreign countries like in India and Nepal, and of course during disasters to help victims, right? Kinds of generosity. So this is probably perhaps a little contribution of Malaysian Buddhism made to the global Buddhist development. But it does not significantly contribute to the development of Buddhism in Malaysia. So from the earlier brief discussion, right, Malaysian Buddhism faces several challenges due to the rapid growth of Buddhist globalization. To name a few, right, these challenges, I believe, too, are common to all Buddhists around the world. And the first one, right, is a marginalization of cultivation, right? So in most of the temples, right, the emphasis on spiritual cultivation has taken a backstage. And Buddhists now are more interested in social and recreational activities rather than spiritual cultivation. So, in Malaysia, more and more people are interested in Buddhism. But we find a lot of Buddhists, right, in Malaysia, but just a very small number of Buddhists are interested in spiritual cultivation. Like, for example, attending to meditation retreats or seclusion, right? That's why, we are quoting, our late chief, Venerable K.Sri Dhammananda. He said, our devotees, like to, run around here and there. Right? Instead of devoting times to spiritual cultivation. And the second one is McDonald digestion of enlightenment. McDonald fast food. So that is to say, this is a kind of instance, instant noodles or fast food way of acquiring the so-called enlightenment. You see, the public, especially many Buddhists, they are expecting the instant result or the quick result. Many years ago, when internet was just popular, many information can be easily obtained from internet. And I remember one devotee sent me a link which consists of a very powerful mantra. And of course, we no understanding it at all with regard to the source of mantra. And he told me that this mantra is very powerful, right? And it can bring a tremendous benefits to Bhante, you like message to me, ask me. You see, so you ask me, no need to cultivate a meditation, right? So hard, huh? You just only what you need, just only recite this very short mantra, right? Just even reciting one time will do. And that's sufficiently abandon all your defilements and realize the instant enlightenment. Wow. Tak boleh tahan. You see, so many people are not patient enough to learn and practice over a long periods of time, right? For example, like in the meditation, right, you have to suffer the pain, etc., etc. So they have no interest, right? Of course, because of these instant noodles, value of the public, more and more teachers are offering quick enlightenment, and because of that, they draw a lot of followers and they become very popular. And the third one is a commercialization of the temples. You see, there have always been some form of commercial activities within the temple. Yes, these activities are necessary to sustain the main role of the temple as a place of learning and worship. That itself is not an issue. However, when greed overrides, some temples focus more on the commercial activities rather than their original role. The temple committee members and the monks, spending more times attending to the commercial activities rather than attending to their primary spiritual role. So the end result is that some big temple receive, millions of ringgit per year, but doing very little for the Dhamma propagation, like spiritual cultivation or even education or for the Sangha training. No such things at all been done. Then the fourth one is alienation of monks. Okay, you see, you look at the primary role of a monk, is the self-cultivation, right, and preaching the Dhamma. You see, when monks do not devote themselves to the primary role, instead of spending their time on organizational activities or administration or attending meetings or socializing with supporters and devotees, then their roles are alienated. So you see, through these ropes and bow series, and of course, I'm not pointing at anybody's organization, but to create an awareness, right, of revitalizing awareness of revitalizing or sustaining the Sasana in Malaysia. Otherwise, Buddhism itself may be alienated, surviving only in name, and we must now wake up, to face this reality. Okay, you see, traditionally, right, in our Buddhist world, there is this concept that the role of monk is to uphold the Dhamma, right? The role of layman is to support the Dhamma, right? You have this dichotomy. So this is the general, traditional understanding. So what does it mean? You see, the so-called upholding Dhammas, right? You look at the word upholding Dhamma, it's nothing more than self-practice and teaching the Dhammas, or presiding, over various Dhamma ceremonies. So it means, when monks upholding the Dhamma, it means it is a monk's responsibility, to uphold the Dhamma, to self-practice and to teach the Dhamma, to preside over various Dhamma assembly. So in the eyes of lay people, right, monk's duty and responsibility is just simply, to uphold the Dhamma, that's it, right? Then, then what do you call, for the layman is to support the Dhamma. And what is this support the Dhamma? You see, it means, nothing more than making offering to the monks or giving donation to build temples. Right? So the layman responsibility is to support the Dhamma by offering requisites to, to the sanghas and to donate money, right, to build the temples. So it seems that, this kind of traditional understanding, okay? Yeah, this kind of traditional understanding, creating, this dichotomy, concept. You see, that gradually lead to a view that monks are not real Buddhists, and are the real Buddhists. They are the real practitioner, and the lay people are just only a marginal supporters. Right? So there's an article, right, in Buddha.net describing monks as players on the football field, right? While laymen were sideline supporters. Layman role is to clap and shout, but not to play the football. So this concept marginalize the role of the lay Buddhists and detract from the power of Buddhism as a whole. So it is mistakenly thought that it is a job of monks and nuns to practice and teach the Dhamma, while it is a job of laymen and lay women, right, to practice a 5 precept and support the Sangha by providing them with their needs. So this traditional understanding, this concept is very wrong. So in one of the description, right, in the Buddha.net, right, it is a wrong and dangerous concept. So in some countries where this concept is common, right, it leads to the pollution of Dhamma. You see, the Buddha's goal was to develop a fourfold assembly, right? Fourfold community of disciples, right? Include, the bhikkhu, bhikkhunis, right? And the lay upasaka, lay upasika, and who were well educated in the Dhamma. Listen carefully. This fourfold assembly, they all well educated in the Dhamma, who practice it fully and who taught it to and to learn it from each other. Okay, so you see now, if you look at the present era, right, in this modern time, Buddhism has developed into an all-encompassing institution, which means bhikkhus, bhikkhunis, lay upasaka, lay upasikas are coming together to help spread Buddhism. So we find the support, in the Mahaparinibbana Sutta. This sutta is from the Digha Nikaya. The Buddha proclaimed that he would not pass away until he had established members of each of the 4 assembly are wise and well-trained, and that they are also self-confident. Right? So this statement is quoted from Mahaparinibbana Suttas, which the Buddha has said to Mara, when shortly after his enlightenment, the Mara urged him to pass straight away into final Nibbana. No need to teach others. Right? So, this is what the Buddha replied to Mara. I quote from the Mahaparinibbana. It says, "Evil one, I will not pass into Nirvana until I have established members of each of the 4 assembly who are competent, well-trained, confident, learned, upholders of the Dhamma, practicing in accordance with the Dhamma, practicing properly, conducting themselves in accordance with the Dhamma, who have learned their own teacher's doctrine and can explain it, teach it, describe it, establish it, disclose it, analyze it, elucidate it, and having thoroughly refuted rival doctrines in accordance with reason, can teach the compelling Dhammas." So this is a passage from the Mahaparinibbana Suttas. So you see, the Buddha's original intention, right, is to establish a group of fourfold assembly, four disciples, to study, practice, teach, and to promote the Dhamma together. So we find in Buddhism that the Sangha and laymen, right, both bhikkhu, bhikkhuni, lay upasaka, lay upasikas, are responsible, right, to promote the Dhamma together. Okay, so it is wrong to say that the monk's role is to uphold the Dhammas, the role of the lay people to support the Dhamma. It is wrong. So you see in the Accept Suttas, right, Mahaparinibbana Suttas, right, these suttas, supposed to be the last suttas, and we find a lot of the advice given by the Buddhists, particularly these 7 conditions, several types of 7 conditions, right? And 6 condition, for the decline, for the non-decline of the Sangha, right? Of course, it means for, the Sangha's growth and prosperity. You see, of course, I believe most of you have seen, have read, have studied, these very important suttas. But I think, these several conditions are worthy of our contemplation again, for the growth and prosperity of the Sanghas. The Buddha again reminded us, of the way the Sangha should live, for the growth of the Buddha Sasana. Particularly, we will go through that, but the last one, the 6th condition, the Buddha says, bhikkhus should show loving kindness towards other bhikkhus by way of body, speech, and mind. I think we have to listen carefully here. Bhikkhus should show loving kindness towards other bhikkhus by way of body, speech, and mind, right? For the destruction of defilements. Furthermore, the Buddha also emphasized whatever that received rightfully should also distributed among other bhikkhus equally, right? And of course, the Buddha say, deal with Vinaya precepts and deal with right understanding. So in this way, there will be growth and prosperity of the Sangha, right? And the Buddha Sasana will last long in the world. So now we look at, anyway, we just read through them. I think they are worthy for our contemplation again. You see here, several sets of 7 conditions for the non-decline. So these are advice, to the Sangha. Okay, of course, I want to cut short here. The first set is monks gather regularly and often. You see? So what does it mean? Monks have to get together often for the growth, not for decline. That's why we know that during the times of the Buddhas, a lot of monks practice Dhutanga or they renounce in the forest, you see. But still, Buddha said you have to come out at least once in fortnight to recite Patimokkha together or to discuss the Dhamma, to discuss the Vinaya, right? So then the second one, they said monks gather in fellowship, in group, and disperse in fellowship and do the Sangha duties in fellowship. You see, it means that the Sangha has to live together, do things together, you see, and to disperse to, you see, in fellowship, do the Sangha duties together. And the third one, monks do not authorize what has not been authorized and do not abolish what has been authorized, but conduct themselves in accordance with the promulgated training rules. That's why in Theravadas, you see, we still keep to these Vinayas. We have no any alteration to the Vinayas. And the fourth one, monks honor, respect, esteem, and venerate the elder monks. This is very important. You find in many suttas, the Buddha says, we have to respect the elder monk, elder monk, and particularly those long-standing, long gone forth Sangha elders, Sangha leaders, and consider it worthwhile to listen to them. Okay? So the Buddha also says monks do not fall under the power of craving. Okay? And 6, monks love to dwell in the forest, right? So of course now, when you talk about the forest, indeed forest is very important place for monks cultivation, right? So sometimes we think, if monks live in the city, then how? There is no forest. So that's why that also prompted, me to, to build a monastery, a little bit far from the city, but able to have a man-made forest built, so that when this tree grown up, we can do in the forest. We can have very simple, dwelling in the forest. Okay. Then another one, monks keep themselves up in mindfulness, so companions in the holy life of virtuous conduct who have not yet come will come. Okay, and they who have come will do in comfort. So this is very important. So this is the first set. Yeah. And the second one is also another set of 7 conditions for the non-decline. Yeah, so this is referred to monk already. Monks do not delight in work, do not find pleasure in work, are not caught up with delight in work. Monks do not delight in thought, do not find pleasure in thought, are not caught up with delight in thought. Okay, it means that don't be so busy. So monks do not delight in sleep also. We do not find pleasure in sleep, are not caught up with delight in sleep. And of course, monks do not delight in company, do not find pleasure in company, are not caught up with delight in company. The monks do not delight in bad desire. Monks do not become bad friend. Okay. Yeah, I think this Kalyana Mitta is emphasized. Even lay people, monk as well. A monk also have to be a Kalyana Mitta for the lay person, right? And we better not be a bad friend for the lay people. And of course, monks do not stop short at of any less attainment. So, monks have to strive until the attainments are hardship. Okay, now we look at another set of 7 conditions, right? Of course, this one pertains to, the 7 noble, the wealth, Arya Dharana. Okay, it means that the monk has to possess the faith, shame, fear, and of course, learned. Learned here during the Buddha's time is heard much. So that's why the devotees, the monks, the sanghas, come to listen to the Buddha's teaching, to hear the Buddha's teaching again and again. It's called Bahusutta. And of course, exert themselves in spiritual, means they're putting effort, right? In spiritual attainment and spiritual development and establishing mindfulness, then only expected the growth of the Sangha, not their decline. So this is the 3rd set. Now we look at another set of 7 conditions for the growth of the Sasana. Yeah, so this 7th set is the 7 factors of enlightenment. Okay, so I think we can just briefly look at them. What are these 7 factors? One is the factors of mindfulness. Okay, Avantika factors of Dhamma investigation, right? Dhamma Pravitra, investigation of the Dhamma, study of Dhammas, analysis of Dhammas, right? So monks are, and of course, effort and with passion and with tranquility, and concentration and equanimity. Okay, so these are 7 factors of enlightenment. And then, there's also another set of 7 conditions, right? And these 7 conditions related to their practice. Okay, practice. It means that the monk will have to practice the perception of impermanence, perception of non-self, perception of the fall, asubha sanya, perception of danger, perception of letting go of defilements, perception of fading away of lust, perception of ending of suffering. Okay, so this is also another set of 7 conditions for the growth of the Sangha. Okay, now we look at the last one, right? 6th condition, right? This is the only 6th condition. Here it says very clearly that the monk showed loving kindness, to companions in the holy life by way of deed. Okay, and the second one also by way of speech, and the third one by way of thought. Okay, it means that when monks live together, they have to show their loving kindness to other fellow brothers and sisters. Okay, you see the power of loving kindness is very important. So we don't show sour face all the time, right? And of course, monks mutually share with virtuous companion in the holy life whatever they receive rightfully. Okay, and okay, even the contents of the ambo, what they have collected, you see. Then the 5th one, dwell, in a moral virtue, and the 6th one, dwell harmoniously with right view. Okay, so then only in this way, they're expected the growth of the Buddha Sasana and the prosperous of the Sasanas, right? And the Buddha Sasana will live long. Okay, now we look at the second one is a close relationship, between monks and lay people and equal status. You see, in the times of the Buddha, right, we find a close relationship between monks and laity, right? Yeah, are quite well established. And of course, we can say that there was the most prosperous time, and era of Buddhism. And if we find several examples, to show you that the bhikkhu bhikkhunis, the upasaka, they equally practice the dhammas together. And of course, especially the lay upasakas and lay upasikas, they are not only made offering to the monks and temple, they also study the Dhamma, and they are quite well versed in the Buddha Dharma. And of course, they also help to promote the Dhamma, and of course for their own self-cultivation. And many of them have achieved the Sotapanna, right? For example, in the case of the first one, the Chitta of Machikasanda. So he was praised by the Buddhists as the foremost in the lay community to spread the Dhamma. And he not only make offering to the Sangha community, but also propagate the Dhamma. Right? And he had taught 500 lay people to convert to Buddhism. And he also taught monks, lay people taught monks the Dhamma, explaining to them, the profound teachings of Buddhism. And of course, not only that, he also had a debate with Niganta Nataputta, right, the leader of Jainism, or naked, the religion, and of course, the opponent. After debate, the opponent becomes speechless. And of course, it says that the Chitta also attained the Anagami. Okay, then we look at another story. Is Hataka of Alavi. He is also another very prominent lay upasakas. And he is not known for making offering, but he is known for attracting people to come to see the Buddha and learn the Dhamma. So he also led 500 lay people, to see the Buddha and taking refuge in the Triple Gem. And the Buddha asked him, how to attract people to study Buddhism. He said, attract people with generosity, attract people with loving kindness, attract people with beneficial action, and attract people with fellowship. So this is the reply from the Hataka to the Buddhists of why he can attract so many people, to take refuge in the Buddha Dharma and Sangha. And of course, looking at these first two stories, you see, they were quite highly praised by the Buddhists and respected by the people, right? Then we look at the third one, the elder Anathapindika, right? It's a famous supporters, right? And we know that Anathapindika, right? He is a famous supporters among the Buddha's disciples. And he's not just only supporters, but he's a Dhamma propagator, right? He propagated Dhamma. And he has refuted, the wrong views of heretics. Yeah. And of course, it says he has also attained the fruit of Sotapanna. The fourth one is Visakha. Visakha is a foremost, female devotee, a practitioner. And she has attained the fruits of Sotapanna, right? And of course, in some other places, the Buddha also entrusted her to handle, some affairs in the Bhikkhuni Sangha. And, King Suddhodana, and we know that he is the father of the Buddha, right? And he's not just a king, but he's also a strong supporter of the Dhamma, a practitioner. And he says that he also attained arhatship at the end of his life. You see, these are all lay people. Then another king, King Bimbisara. We know King Bimbisara. He also attained the fruit of Sotapanna. And another one, Jivaka. But Jivaka, he was, the the physician, the royal physician, and he made offering to the sanghas, and he practiced the Dhamma. It says that also he has attained the fruit of Sotapanna. Okay, now we look at the concept of equality between Sangha and the lay community. And of course, if you look at this concept of equality between the Sanghas and the lay community, we can see in the story of Chitta and the Bhikkhu Sudhamma. Okay, Bhikkhu Sudhamma made a very rude remark, right, and ridiculed Chitta's that the offering were not rich enough. Then, as a result, the Sangha decided that the Bhikkhu Sudhamma should repay, to this lay upasaka, Chitta. And you find the Vinaya, 2. This one is from the Patisaraniya Karma. The meaning of Patisaraniya Karma is the procedure for reconciliation. This Vinaya explains details how a monk should repent and apologize to a lay person if he or she has done something wrong to the lay person. And this is expressed by the stock phrase is katang tuang kahapating sadhang pasannang dayakang karakang sangha upatahakang hinena kungsesasi hinena wang behesasi. How can you jeer and scoff at a faithful, believing householders who makes gift, who is active, who support the community? Okay, so we find this, and of course a few others as well. So we are not going to go into this, but we said that there is this concept of equality. You say a kind of mutual respect between the Sangha and the lay community. Okay, let me see. Then next, let me see. Then the third one is alienation from monks and lay people. We know that during the King Ashoka, right, who lived 2,300 years ago, right? He was a great king during the 3rd century BC. He was a great supporter of Buddhism, right? And he was from Gandhara also. So it says that he built 84,000 stupas around India and abroad, and he sent 9 missionaries to different parts of the region to spread the Buddhism. So Buddhism indeed was flourished under the patronage of King Ashoka, and we saw 4 assemblies, bhikkhu, bhikkhunis, upasaka, upasikas, and other heretics. He also supported other heretics as well, and they were all living very peacefully and harmoniously. And we know King Ashoka has sent one of the missionary, right, to Sri Lanka. He sent his own son Mahinda and his own daughter Sanghamitas, and they brought the sapling of Bodhi tree and Buddha's 2 relics to Sri Lanka. And Sanghamitas established a Bhikkhuni orders in Sri Lanka. So since then, Buddhism was flourished and existed until now. So we can say that Sri Lanka is the fountain of Theravada Buddhism. But after the times of Ashoka, we find the relationship between monks and lay person gradually become strained. That is because King Ashoka and the later king that followed, they gave what they call excessive support to the temples, right? Resulting in the temples being overly luxurious and rich. And Master Yi Jing, he was a Chinese traveler. He described this when he arrived in India at the end of the 7th century AD. This is what he says, right? He said the temple is so rich. The warehouses are full of rotten corn, countless female servants, and the treasury is full of gold and jewelry. Wow. So this is the description of these very famous Chinese travelers when he arrived in India. You see, As a result of this, there is no communication with the lay people. That's why the temple don't keep too much money, right? If you keep too much money, and then you need not any support from the laity, then there is no proper relationship, right? So then what happened is that lack of communication with the lay people. Then eventually, there are monks in the temple, but no lay supporters, you see. So that's why, that made Buddhism very fragile, because when the invaders invaded India, they burned the temple and they killed all the Sangha monastic members. That's what, Indian Buddhism, of course, one of the reasons how Indian Buddhism perished. And of course, you look at this, there was no Buddhist outside the temple to protect the monastery. Right? I think that's quite true, isn't it? So we all know that, you see, the same situation also happens in Sumatra, right? Sumatra. From the 6th to 11th century, we know that the Sumatra was the center of Buddhism in the world. And there were many outstanding Buddhist monks like Dhammakriti, Atisa, and so on. And of course, we know that later on, we know that the extent, this Sumatra also extend to northern Malaysia, like we call it Lembah Bujang. It's also the spread of the Buddhism in Sumatra. But later Buddhism also declined here, and according to one of the Muslim scholars, right, his name is called Sheikh Muhammad Nakwat Altas. I don't know how to pronounce the name. It's just Sheikh Muhammad. In his book, he said it is because the monks were self-enclosed in the temple. They were isolated, from the world. It means that there is no relation, there is no close contact with the lay people, because the temple was so rich, right? So you see, when in the temple, when there are monks, but no laymen support, Buddhism will soon disappear. So this is one of the reasons, contributing factors for the declining of Buddhism. Now, we look at the fourth one, is the rise of laymen and the era of strong Sangha. You see, from the end of the 19th century, to the 20th century, right, Buddhism in Asia, including Sri Lanka and many other parts, faced the danger of extinction. So at this time, it was fortunate that the rise of the lay Buddhists and the reform of the Sangha were able to avoid this crisis. In Sri Lanka, and in the 19th century, under the devastation of Christianity, Buddhism had severely deteriorated, you see. So realizing the crisis, facing Buddhism, the Buddhist Sangha began to revive. So, these are few, revival movement, right? It says that in 19th century, right, Venerable, Walane Siddhartha, he started Parama Dhammacetiya Prevena, which was the beginning of the revival of Buddhist education. Okay, and then another one is, when you talk about the Pirivena, what is this Pirivena? Maybe you are not familiar with it. Pirivena is a singular word, right? Pirivena means Buddhist college, provides Buddhist education, right, for Buddhist monk. And of course, the word Pirivena was long existed in the 2nd century AD. Of course, during this British and the foreign colonization, all these Pirivenas were replaced by the missionary school. Okay, so but however, we see this revival of Buddhism by the Sangha. Is it Sangha really make an effort to revise? Then, of course, we do find another monk, right, Sri Sumangalathera, right? He founded the Vidyodaya Pirivena, and another one, Rakmalani, Sri Dhammaloka, founded Vidyalankara Pirivena. And it says that the our late chief, K. Sri Dhammananda, also educated there. I was there also. I was staying there for many years. You see, when we look at these Sanghas, they were all pioneers in promoting the revival Buddhism at that time. And now we look at the lay people. How about the lay people? You see, we know that the lay people, they are also quite vigorously promoted the Buddhist revival movement. And, you know, I quoted 3 very famous ones, like Anagarika Dhammapala, and what else? And Henry Olcott. And then you have another one is called the Dr. Mbeka. Okay, so these 3 persons, we must know their story. Okay, now we look at Anagarika Dhammapala. He was a lay Buddhist practitioner, right? And of course, he advocated for the lay Buddhists to spread the Dhamma and to protect the teaching, right? To especially, you know, to fight back against the Christianity's false accusation of Buddhism. So he went to India and started the Mahabodhi movement, right? And he's striving to return the sovereignty of Mahabodhi temple. We know that the Mahabodhi temple is a holy place of Buddha's enlightenment, right, to Buddhism. So that is his very great achievement. And another one is Henry Olcott, right? Henry Olcott, and of course, he's trying to make Vesak a public holiday. And we know that, you know, he also designed, you know, the Buddhist flag. Buddhist flag, you know, you have very colorful Buddhist flag. They are now quite common, you know, to the world today. Then another one is the Dr. Mbeka. Dr. Mbeka. Dr. Mbeka, who was Indian, right? He led a large number of untouchable, you know, in South India, you know, to convert to Buddhism. So it says, Dr. Mbeka launched a movement to return to Buddhism. And he led 500,000 people at that time to take refuge in the Triple Gem. You know, these people, they are coming from the untouchable group to take refuge in the Triple Gems and to uphold the 5 precepts. Yeah, but unfortunately, he was assassinated. So, of course, you know, from this movement, we find, you know, Dr. Mbeka. The movement has rekindled the flames of Buddhism that has been extinguished in India since the 12th century. So, you know, in modern times, many Buddhist groups, especially led by the lay community, laymen, also established one after another. I think one very important is in 1950, right, this 4-4 assembly gathered in Colombo and founded the World Fellowship of Buddhists. You see, this establishment of World Fellowship of Buddhists, right, marked the first event in the Buddhist history. Yeah, when, you know, we had the Buddhists from 4 assembly of all sects in the world. They all gathered, you know, for the same purpose, for the progress of Buddhism. And we find the president of this you know, World Fellowship were laymen. And of course, the leader are mostly laymen. Okay, so now the 5th one, the future development of Buddhism. Now, after hearing, you know, what we have said earlier, right? When we are talking about our future development, so yeah, realizing the importance of this 4-4 assembly. So we had to combine the strength, you know, of this 4-4 assembly, you know, to make a joint effort, right? For this to be success, right? I think first monks and laymen must first improve themselves, right, in order to meet the challenges of the time. So what is the challenges of the time? Of course, there are many. Of course, we hope at the Q&A session, so you can share the challenges and the way to improve it. You see, nowadays we are talking about in this era of you know, explosive, you know, era of advanced, you know, information and knowledge. You see, or, you know, generally people also have very high education. It means that nowadays, you know, everyone can easily access, to the internet, to learn Buddhism, to have an understanding of this secular topic, even Buddhism. So in this sense, we are no longer like in the past, expect laymen to accept your teaching with respect and with blind obedience, right? Because, lay people now are quite well versed in the Dhamma. You see, if monks are not well trained in the Dhamma, you see, these lay people, they will keep asking questions, inquiry, discuss. You see, they started out teaching, they will inquiry the monks. Huh? So monks, this is indeed a challenge for a Buddhist monk. So for Buddhist monks, we are not just only shaving the hair, and then live in the forest, dissociate ourselves from the lay people, from the laity. So, so we had to face that this is one of the great challenges. Huh? And of course, in our era, monks also have to lead the time. And of course, you see, when you're talking about the monks, of course, people will say, okay, this is an era of, very materialistic world, right? And the money is about everything else, you see? And of course, yeah, we know that. Yeah, but, this is also one of the challenge because, you see, in our sutta, the Buddha say, monk, we have to lead a very simple life. We have to keep the precept. We have to purify our mind. We have to be kind enough, and we have to lead a very contented life. To have a peace of mind. So this is indeed, monks, the sanghas, facing these unprecedented challenges of the time. Okay, so you have to find kind of balance. Find a balance in it. So I think the support of the lay people is also very important. Why I say this is because, in the past, the road, that's why people said the monks to uphold the Dhamma, right? The main task of the monk was very simple, they just practice, or to educate the people. So it's very easy to, to establish a practical mode, to practice model. But nowadays, monks has to undertake the management of the temple operation. Have to take care of the funding, fundraising, the communication, Facebook, things like that, and to socialize with the lay people as if, they're playing the role of the CEO of a company. Yeah, you see, you look at the ancient days, the temples of the Buddha's time, mostly made of the thatched, what they call thatched grass. They call kuti, very simple kuti, with thatched grass, with very little material, and of course, no any complicated management. But now we look at the temples. It's like a big company, even bigger than some listed company. So we look at, we read recently an article that some temple in China, the abbot is like play the role of CEO, and turn temple into a listed company. I don't know, so you see, so despite all difficulties that the monk have to face, right, monk still have to adhere to the mold, to the model of practice of simplicity of life, and of course to keep the precept, to purify the mind, to be loving kindness and compassion, to have peace of mind. So you see, so this is a challenge for Buddhist monks. So if we don't maintain this role of Sangha, Buddhism will again neglected in the society, and we don't gain respect from the lay people, right? So for a lay person, and now we talk about the lay person, in addition to continuing the traditional role of protecting the dhammas or to make an offering, you see, the lay people, they cannot expect monks, to uphold the dhamma. They just only to, to support. No, lay person also must practice the dhamma. Yeah, but fortunately in Malaysia, we have many great, the lay communities. They are quite well versed in the dhamma, right? So, So yeah, like we have seen just now, during the times of the Buddhas, there were many lay people. They are quite well versed in the Dhammas, they practice the Dhamma, they cultivate the Dhamma, they promote the Dhamma, and they're organizing the lay people to embrace Buddhism. Eventually, they also attain the sainthood, you see. So the current trend is that, now Buddhism, also like many other, great, great religion, also, grown into an all-compassing business heavy undertaking, which means that monks are no more afford, to handle this task anymore. So this task need to be undertaken by qualified laymen. For example, taking just example like, monks, of course, we say it's very difficult for monks to undertake, we call it a chaplaincy, chaplaincy, in hospital and prison, which is very popular in the West. So it's very difficult for monks to undertake this. So we need to train, or the temple has to train and organizing a high quality professional lay Buddhist, as we call in the US term, Buddhist chaplain. So they are quite. So this is very what do you call? We need this kind of what you call the Buddhist chaplain, right, for future developments of Buddhism. And of course, they have to be paid a salary. Yeah, of course, it's very important. So we are no more, especially doing all these professional jobs. The Buddhist temples have to pay for them. So I'm talking about the mutual support from the laity as well as from the Sangha. So our Malaysian Buddhists, they need many or need a large number of talented people to take responsibility in various field. So, and of course, the monks are to be well trained as well. So yeah, that's why the Buddha says, if you become a monk, you are no more receive a secular education, right? You need to have a proper training, at least 5 years. But you want to go for an thorough training and practice, I think that need another 15 to 20 years. Okay, so you see why I say this is because if these areas are not undertaken by a professional Buddhist, the layman, then the vacuum will be filled by other forces immediately. So you see, Buddhism eventually will automatically be out of touch with society. So in some society, due to the lack of Buddhist lay people in certain professional fields, the Buddhist voice are often not accepted, and of course, Buddhism, is marginalized, right? So you see, the monks, they are specialized. They are specialists in Buddha Dharma, and they may not be proficient, right, in some other mundane works. So some of these mundane works, such as what you call, like accounting, negotiating with this, what you call, the government officials, right, or organizing, I don't know, crematoriums, etc., etc. You see, these will be more effective, right, if they are handled by laymen who are trained and professional. So, and of course, in this era, you will really have to organize the lay Buddhists and making good use of their good talents. And that definitely help to connect Buddhism with modern society and make Buddhism a vibrant society. Okay, now I think I need to say something about this because, many people asking me why you want to establish the temple, because there are so many Buddhist society and Buddhist temples already in Malaysia, you see. But of course, when we look at all these Buddhist centers, they are mostly lay-centered society and lay-centered centers. Of course, you ask them, this lay society, they surely will allow you to, to stay in the temple to propagate the Dhamma. Right? I have been to many Buddhist society, and centers. And of course, personally to me, I find, to sustain the Sasana, indeed, it's not an easy task. Huh? And of course, to coordinate with lay people, especially lay people with different motive or affiliated with different tradition, and that caused unavoidable, complication too. So, seeing all these complications, I established a new monastery, right, to sustain, and to grow the Sasana, right? So in 2015, I registered a non-profit company. It's company, right? But it's called non-profit. It's called Brahma Vihara Monastery Retreat Center. And it is registered under the Act of Company in Malaysia. The decision making, the decision body of Brahma Vihara consists of Sangha Council and the board of directors who are professional lay people appointed by the Sangha Council. So we have a group of professional who consists of accountant, company secretary, and legal advisors to handle the Brahma Vihara monastery's matter. You see, the monastery, Brahma Vihara Monastery, was initially built in 2017, right? Started with, building of Simaho and the Sangha Kuti. And later we built international meditation retreat centers, of course, with the female dormitory. And now we completed Theravada Academic Multipurpose Halls and with the male, dormitory. So now we organize, after MCO, or even before that also, we organize various stay in retreat program, called a monastery stay retreat. And that stay in monastery, stay in retreat, we provide a spiritual friendship platform. It's a Kalyana Mitta platform, for monks and laities, to come together and to learn and practice together, to encourage and to help each other for the spiritual upliftment and realization. And there is a beautiful teaching in which the Buddha's cousin, right, Ananda, comes to the Buddha and say, "Oh, blessed one, I figure out the spiritual friendship is half of spiritual life." Then the Buddha says, "No, not so, Ananda. Don't say that. Don't say that. It is not. Don't say it is just half. It is the whole of spiritual life." So you can see the Buddha emphasize the importance of spiritual Kalyana Mitta's platform for Sangha and laity, to learn together, to practice together, right? So this is assurance that the spiritual friendship is the whole of spiritual life. So we continue conducting retreat. It's also, another way of associating with spiritual friends, associate with like-minded people, practicing together for our continuous experience of inner peace and joys, and finally, reaching our goal for our realization of ending of all defilements. So thank you very much.